Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about the movie Tim. Now, this movie is on Hulu, and there's a girl who, the actress that's in it, has been in a couple other movies. Most notably that I've watched that I really liked, Barbarian. And there's another movie that she's been in, I think it's Predator. So she's been in a couple things that I think people have watched and have been of note. And she is in this movie, and I'll put her name here because I don't know what her actual name is. But in the movie, this character's name is Abby. And so this movie is actually pretty much about a robot who becomes obsessed with the wife of the family. So we get a couple who clearly they're moving into a new home, and it appears that the wife has this new tech job because we see her entering into this new building facility, and she's looking around and she meets her boss. And her boss at the end of the day tells her that he has a gift waiting for her at home. Now, I don't know if I would just take that and be like, oh, okay. I would ask, oh, like, what did you send to my house? Like, especially like I don't live by myself. My husband lives there with me. Like, why would I just accept the fact that you sent something to my house? Like, this is my first day. I don't know you. Like, what is at my house? So anyways, she goes home to her husband. Her husband's name is Paul. And I don't know where exactly in their house it is, but they go down to what I'm assuming is a basement. They open up this closet, and out steps this robot, Tim. Oh, whose name is Tim, actually. And right away, this robot is extremely human-like, way too human-like in my opinion. I do think that maybe they could have done like a better job of making it a little bit more less human-like, to make it a bit more creepy. But then I guess for some people, making it look superhuman does make it creepy. So to each their own. So immediately this robot asks for their passwords, like right off the bat. So like he can help them with like day-to-day stuff. And in my head, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, cause why, like, to what extent do I need a robot's help? Like, am I that lazy? Like, okay, I guess to check emails and stuff, but also like robots have like, I mean, I don't know, with all like AI and stuff going on and all of this stuff, it's like, I wouldn't trust a robot with all my information like that, especially one that looks human-like. I know we kind of technically use robot stuff right now, but like a human-like looking robot, no thank you. I would not be doing that. But anywho, so she asks, she says that she wants to go and take a bath, and robot Tim is like, oh, I'll run you. It's already running. I'll go grab some towels. So like, can robot Tim read minds? Like, what's going on here? And obviously this is the clue that he's about to be obsessed with her, because like you were so ready to jump on it about, oh, I'll get you some towels. Like, no. So fast forward, Abby tells her husband Paul that they've been invited to a dinner party for her new boss. And when they get to the house, they see that another robot, Tim, opens the door. So apparently this boss gifted her with the same robot that he also has. And you know, they go inside the house and they're talking and all of this stuff. You know, her boss asks her, hey, what do you think of the gift? And she's thinking about, well, she tells him that she's thinking about whether or not to keep it because her husband's not really too fond of it. And her boss tells her like, oh, it's not really optional because it will look bad if not everyone in the company has possession of this Tim. And it's like, at this point, it's like, what? So I'm assuming that Tim is some type of prototype or some product that they've created at the company, and they want all of their employees to have this Tim. We can assume that it looks bad because all the employees are supposed to pretty much have this robot. and I'm sure they're trying to sell it. There you go. So she starts talking to her creepy boss's friends, or I don't know if they work at the company, I'm not sure. But they're all talking about like tech stuff. And at some point, one of them mentions that they're glad that Abby is there because they needed a little diversity in the group. And I don't know whether they were referring to her race because, like, she's black, but, well, the actress herself is biracial. And obviously she's a woman. So I don't know if they meant what, race, sex, both? Like, what are we talking about here? Um, but it's interesting because that kind of never comes up again. Like her being pretty much somebody to meet a diversity quota or anything about her race or her sex just never comes up ever again. But I thought that was like pretty interesting. So later on, Abby and her husband Paul are back at home. They're in bed, they're sleeping, whatever. And then the robot pretty much sneaks up on them in their room. And like, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But then like, Abby pretty much laughs it off, but you can tell that her husband is like, what the heck is going on here? And then she goes up to Tim and just casually says, I'll see you in the morning, Tim. Now, I know, he's supposed to be a robot. You wouldn't think, oh, crazy, creepy robot sneaking up on me and my husband in the bedroom. But no, like, honestly, that is what I would be thinking. Because that's a little bit weird. Like, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't have a robot in my house to begin with, a human one. So it's just like, her reaction to this to me is really not normal. So then in the next scene or a couple scenes later, we meet the neighbor Rose, who, I'm gonna be real with you, whenever they introduce like some random neighbor or somebody, I just know they are gonna die in the future. They're in the future of this movie. Like, there's no way that they live, and if they live, they get like seriously injured or something. This is where we kind of find out that Abby has trust issues with Paul. They kind of alluded to that in the beginning when she was like looking at a photo of them, but like a broken photo of them, which kind of symbolizes that their marriage was broken. But this is really where we get background info that Abby has trust issues with Paul because he cheated on her in the past. And so meeting Rose is just super friendly. She's super nice. And she does a couple of things like throughout the movie where it's just like, okay, nobody who is not actually flirting would do this if they were not flirting. But I guess like they just try to make it seem like Rose is like super nice in the movie. Like she kisses Paul on the cheek at one point. I mean, like there's other like subtle things, but other than that, like she is just really, really nice. But I feel like, girl, like women who know boundaries would not do what Rose was doing. But I digress. So then we see there's a mouse that's been running around this house. And then in this scene, we see a little bit of the evil of Tim come out because the mouse gets trapped in the mouse trap. And Tim picks up the mouse and puts him in, like, you know, the disposals, like the sink disposal, and puts him in the sink disposal. And this actually reminds me of another robot movie. Well, it's a show and it's called Cassandra. I think it's a German show. I might be wrong. I watched it a couple months back. And Cassandra also killed a mouse on purpose. Like in that show, she was a robot that, you know, was turned evil. There's a lot more to that story, but she was pretty much like, I guess, an evil robot, and she squished a mouse on purpose. So it's very interesting. Like, there's that those things were so similar. And there's another thing in this movie that was also similar, and I don't remember exactly what it is at this moment, but if I remember it, I will bring it up. So at some point, Abby and Paul are laying down watching this super boring movie. Well, Tim is there sitting on the couch and he's awake because, you know, he's a robot. And Abby and Paul are sleeping, I believe. And then, like, the movie ends and I think Abby wakes up. And Tim is talking to Abby about how he wishes he could be loved, etc., etc. And it's so strange because it's like, okay, obviously we already knew where this was going, but this is now introducing us to the fact that Tim has feelings. And the strangest thing is that Abby doesn't look at this as weird. Now, I like to preface, obviously, this is a robot that throughout the movie they are working on Tim, but it's interesting to me how Abby doesn't really seem to find things strange, or she doesn't notice things. And it's like it has to be one of the other, one thing or the other, right? It's either you find things strange and you're just totally oblivious, or you notice everything, because it's like it seems like she's one of the lead people that's working on Tim as a robot. So it's so weird how in the movie she just doesn't know about certain functions of Tim. So in the morning time, we get a glimpse of, I guess you could say, Tim's disdain for Paul, or just not liking Paul, because he makes breakfast for Abby, but he doesn't make breakfast for Paul. And he also reads off Abby's like schedule for the day. And then he's like, hey, Paul, do you want me to read off your schedule for the day? And Paul is like, yeah, sure, why not? And like Tim throws shade kind of, and he's like, oh, well, you have nothing planned for the day. And it's like, okay, like, so this robot is thinking like a human being. Even the way he said it is just like, yo, little sassy here for a robot. Tim, pipe down. Then we kind of see Abby's, like, I guess, naivety to what Tim is, or what he is capable of, or him just being a robot, because she asked him for advice on what to wear to something. And don't get me wrong, I know it's a like, say you were totally just didn't think that this robot was anything cool, but this robot is like this robot looks like a man. And she asked him for advice for what to wear. And then not only that, when she puts on the dress, she asked him, robot, to help her zip up the dress. And again, even if you didn't think the robot was anything, I still think it would be a little weird that a robot that looks like a man, that's not my husband, is helping me zip up my dress. It's a little strange. But anyway, Tim comes over, helps her zip up the dress, then it rips, and then he has this little glitch freak out session that happens, which is also similar to something that happens in the show Cassandra, which I also found very interesting. Now, I'm not implying that they copied off of each other, but maybe this is like a thing for robot movies. I don't know. There's another I guess robot movie that I would like to watch on Netflix that's called, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but I think it stars Megan Fox. And I kind of want to see if that has any similarities to this movie or the show Cassandra. So then we find out that Paul, who has been looking for a job, has gotten a job offer. However, this job offer is an hour and a half away, and Abby does not want him to take this job because she thinks some bad things will happen when he takes this job. Obviously, she still has trust issues because, again, he cheated on her. But I'm thinking like an hour and a half is really not that far. Like, there are people in a city who travel an hour and a half to work on train. But so a little bit later on, we catch a glimpse of Abby on her break at work, and she is looking at sweaters online, I guess for Paul. And and in my head, I'm like, okay, this has to be something that's going to turn into something, because why would they be showing her looking at the sweaters, right? So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, is Tim gonna like transform into one of these men? Is he gonna like be wearing the sweater when she gets home? Like, is something with this sweater? And there is something with the sweater, but it's not really what we think it is. or what we thought, or what I thought it was going to be. So at this point in the movie, we find out that Tim can replicate voices because I believe he was giving Abby advice on something. I don't know if it was to call a doctor or to call something. And I don't think she wanted to do it. And he was like, oh, yeah, I'll do it for you. And then he calls the person. And instead of using his voice like I thought he would do, like to pretend to be Abby's assistant, he calls and he speaks to the person in Abby's voice, to which Abby's reaction is like, what the heck? And this is where I'm like, how do you not know that he could do this? When you have a team of people working on him and you're one of those people. In fact, you seem like one of the lead people. But anyway, that's an important piece of information because it just makes Tim just a little bit creepier, or a lot of bit creepier. It just keeps getting weirder because at some point Tim goes out into town on his own in like this self-driving car, which they were introduced to at the beginning of the movie. He showed them the functions of the car and everything. And so he goes out into town in this self-driving car. And when he comes back, he gave himself an entire makeover solely based on the fact that he realized that Abby lingered on certain photos of men in the blue sweater. I think it was in the blue sweater that looked a certain way. And I believe they had brown hair, a certain color eyes, and whatever else it was. And so he literally went into town and gave himself a makeover. And so Abby is like, and he tells her like what I just said. He tells her why. And she was like, yeah, no, never do that again. And he goes and he changes himself back. And so it's like, okay, so he has access to your phones and stuff. I don't really understand how. I mean, I know it's like a robot, but like, I don't really understand how exactly. And like the fact that like he noticed, like he was like, oh, your pupils dilated or whatever when you looked at this picture of a guy and you lingered longer. And it's just like, how could you even know that? Like you could detect what she's looking at, I guess, if you have access to her phone, but how can you even see like her reaction to those pictures? And I mean, like that wasn't really explained. But again, this is something that she doesn't seem privy to. And she's kind of like, I guess not shocked about, but like she just doesn't seem like she knew that he was able to do this, that he had this function. Like, do you work at this job or not, lady? Now, Tim is back at the office or wherever it is that Abby works. And I think she has the day off. And he's getting updated or whatever they need to do with robots, or like, you know, they're fixing something with him. I don't know. And so Abby and Paul are in their bedroom and they're talking about how Paul really wants to get rid of Tim because he thinks he's weird and all this stuff. And, you know, they keep panning from the phone that's on the nightstand next to their bed to Tim sitting in the chair in the office getting his update, back to the phone, back to Tim, back to the phone, back to Tim. And then at some point I'm thinking, oh, is this one of those things? Because they start going through the house and stuff, right? And like, it seems like, oh, is Tim back home? Like, did he come home by himself and he's gonna like sneak up on them in the room? And then they show the phone. And then that pretty much, obviously, because remember, he could see everything that Abby was doing on their phone. Not only that, he could like notice what her eyeballs were doing. And so we can only assume that he was hearing their entire conversation through the phone while they were sitting in bed and while he was at the office getting updated. How that works, I don't know. You would think that they would maybe have some type of off function while they're updating or something, but apparently he still works. So he heard that entire thing. So earlier in the movie, Abby and Rose were together because Paul convinced, well, Abby happened on Rose, but Paul really wanted Abby to have a relationship with Rose because he's like, Rose is really nice. And so she meets Rose like when she comes out of this cafe or whatever, and then they go for a walk and they see this necklace in the window, and Abby's like, oh, no, Rose is like, oh, that's beautiful. And Abby's like, oh, it's not really for me. And Rose is like, no, like, I'm sure you would like it. It is for you. And Abby's like, yeah, I do really like the necklace. And the reason that this comes into play is because at this point in the movie, Abby opens a closet and she finds the necklace in the closet and she smiles and she puts it away, probably because she thinks, oh my gosh, Paul got me the necklace, that I liked. And Paul did actually come up behind Rose and Abby when they were looking at the necklace, so it's highly possible that he saw that and it was like, oh, my wife likes this necklace, I'm gonna get it for her. So it's makes sense why she would think Paul got her the necklace. So Paul is at home by himself. I believe Abby is at work. And on camera, he catches Paul smelling Abby's clothes, like on like video camera, because like they have the cameras throughout the house, and he catches Paul smelling Abby's clothes. And so I mean, not Paul, he catches Tim smelling Abby's clothes. And so Paul gets up from the camera, and then when we see, as he steps away, we see that Paul looks up at the camera. And so obviously it's like he's connected to every bit of technology in this house. So he knows that Paul is coming. But by the time Paul comes downstairs, Tim is out of the room, like ain't nothing happened, and he just greets Paul like, hey. So there's that. So Paul then goes to meet Abby at work, I'm assuming. But his car is not working conveniently. And remember that self-driving car? Well, Paul decides to take the self-driving car. Now, at the beginning of the movie, it's explained to them that this self-driving car has a certain way of like stopping it or like taking control of it if you would like to. So keep that in mind as Paul gets into this car and the car starts speeding down the road, obviously because Tim is probably controlling the car and he wants to kill Paul. And so the car is speeding down the road, and instead of like this self-driving, like knowing how to stop the self-driving car coming into play, it doesn't, and the car pretty much crashes, and now Paul is in the hospital. So Abby then meets Paul at the hospital, where he tries to tell her that Tim is dangerous. But does Abby believe him? No. And are we surprised? Also no. And at this point, I'm like, why are we taking the side of a robot? Like, I mean, I guess, like, he's lied to her before with cheating, but why would he lie about, like, something like this, though? Like, this is not something that I could see happening in real life. Like, we're just believing a robot. Like, why would he lie about this? Like, that's stupid, right? Am I bugging? That's stupid. So Rose then goes by the house to check on Abby. But Abby's not there. Tim is there. And he tells her, oh, well, Abby is not here. And the next thing we see is Rose approaching Abby in the car that's pulling up into the driveway. And lo and behold, Rose is wearing the necklace around her neck. And I will tell you right now, I don't think we ever get a resolution as to why Rose even ever had the necklace around her neck. But obviously, Abby's looking at this and is assuming that Paul gave her the necklace, which leads her to believe that Paul is cheating on her. And that's pretty typical of movies. It's like, oh, I found a gift that I thought was for me, and then I found out my husband was cheating because I saw another woman wearing that same necklace. And it's just like, I get it, but still, it's like all her logic has gone out of the window at this point. Like, why do you think Rose would approach you wearing the same necklace that y'all both saw, that she know Paul saw with you? And it's just like, don't you think that would be stupid of her? But no, Abby has no logic. So Abby then, enters her house, and Tim shows her a video of Paul cheating on her with Rose. And this is like, we know that Tim can transform, I guess. And this is another thing that Abby, well, I'm not sure if he could transform actually, but he has control of everything. But like, but Abby again, like, really doesn't question any of this, which I guess you can excuse and make sense. Her husband cheated on her prior to, but still, like, she's not thinking anything through, like, at all. Like, she's just believing everything the robot tells her at this point. So by the time Paul comes back from the hospital, it doesn't really seem like he was there that long. All suitcases are packed at the door, and that's because Abby wants him gone. So he leaves, and then at a payphone, I think he calls Rose, I'm not sure, and Rose tells him that, hey, your robot tried to kiss me, and this is where Paul immediately calls Abby, and we hear Abby's voice on the phone, and he's telling Abby, Tim is dangerous, you gotta leave. And that's when it pans to, not pans, it shows us the home, and it's Tim who's on the phone impersonating Abby's voice, saying that she will come, or that she will leave. And we see Abby in the hallway saying, who is that? And Tim lies about who it is. We saw this coming from a mile away. So actually, after he calls Abby and Tim pretends to be Abby, he actually comes back home. Tim answers the door. We see that he gets knocked out by Tim, who tries to drown him in the tub. Rose comes by, and Tim is like, she's like, oh, I'm supposed to be meeting Paul. Is he here? Tim lies and said he's not here. But then you hear Paul screaming up in the tub. She's like, what's that? He's like, oh, it's the plumbing. And that's where, Tim goes back. He offs Paul. So Paul is dead now. That's pretty quick. I really didn't think he would die, but I really also don't care that much that he died. That's how much of a connection I had to these characters. And at this point, there's 25 minutes left in this movie. So I'm like, what could possibly happen? Like, I feel like we're getting to the climax, or we're at the climax. And like, it's just like, what could possibly be happening? There's 25 minutes left, So Abby goes out, she comes back home, and she tries on the dress that ripped earlier in the movie that Tim has fixed for her. How nice of him. And then he calls her beautiful, and she asks Tim to hold her. And it's like, what are we doing here? And I'm a little confused at this point, because it's like, she knows he's a robot, but is she getting feelings for the robot? Like, that's not really conveyed, that she's getting feelings for the robot throughout the movie. It's like she using him as like a comfort or coping mechanism because she thinks her husband cheated on her. I'm just confused as to why she's asking a robot to hold her, but that's just me. Maybe y'all will understand. I was just looking at the movie like, what are we doing here? So then Abby takes it upon herself, when she comes back home, to rewatch the video of Paul cheating on her with Rose. And then something about the flowers in the background makes her realize that the video is a deep fake. And she realized Tim was lying. And then she calls a flower shop about the flowers, and they tell her when it was purchased. And then they conveniently tell her what the man looked like. And the man is the description that fits exactly what Tim looks like. So then she goes out to the garden, and I don't know if she was digging or whatever, but she finds Paul buried, and she starts screaming. And this is where she finally finds out that Tim is evil. Too little, too late, Abby. Too little, too late. And so Tim is behind her, and then she tries to turn off Tim using 3 words that are supposed to be safe phrases that they came up with at the beginning of the movie. But they don't work, because I guess Tim changed them or turned it off. So yeah, they don't work. So Tim's still alive and kicking. He then hits her over the head, and she's knocked out for a bit, and he locks her in the house, but she gets free. She runs around the home like in this weird like they didn't need to do this. They did not need to show her running around the home. It was just so funny, but she's knocking out all of the cameras inside of the house, I guess because she realizes that Tim can see her wherever she is. But it's like he's in the house. It's not like knocking out the cameras is really going to do anything for you. So that whole scene was pointless, but she does that. And then she tries to escape by like unscrewing a window, but Tim comes right up behind her and drags her off of the counter. We already knew that that was not going to work. Like she was taking like freaking forever to unscrew those screws from the window. Like move with a purpose, Abby. So across the way, Rose sees a lights flickering in Abby and Paul's house, and she finds that weird. So she decides to go over there. And I'm gonna be real, that I would not do that. I definitely would not do that. I would like mind my business or call the police, but I'm not going over there myself. I'm sorry. What's going on over there ain't none of my business. We calling the police and I'm not getting involved, and that's how it's gonna be. But she chooses to go over there and make it her business. So she rings the doorbell. Tim answers the door and then pretty much slams it in her face. And then she just like keeps ringing the bell and then eventually goes away. And I'm like, what? What just happened? It was like so abrupt. But then we realized that Rose actually had a plan. So she drove the car, well, attempts to drive the car through the glass. And at first, like the glass just cracks and it doesn't break because it's a smart home, or I guess it's a smart home. I don't know. And I'm like laughing because I thought it was funny, like that it didn't break. But eventually it does crack and the whole screen frame breaks and she drives. I think she gets out of the car and with like this huge, I don't know if it's a metal pole or whatever, and like she pretty much runs at Tim and drives it through him. And we think this is the end because Tim knocks out, but it's like he's a robot and all you did was hit him through here. I don't think that really hit any important circuits or anything. And lo and behold, Tim is still alive and well because he gets up, and I don't know if it was a piece of glass or whatever, but he stabs Rose in the chest twice. Or in her body, I don't know. I think it was her chest. He stabs her twice. And it seems like Rose is dead. We don't ever get any confirmation. So I'm going to assume she's dead. He then calls the police, pretending to be Abby with that voice changing thing he can do. And like he says and Abby is screaming, but he says he's blocking out her screams using some blocker. I don't know. So I guess it's a function of his. So they can't actually hear her screaming over 911, just her confessing to killing her husband and her neighbor because they were having an affair. And I'm wondering what's coming of this because her husband and her neighbor are dead. So what is she going to tell the police when they do, in fact, come to the house? I don't like what's going to happen with that. And we don't know, but movie. So we roll with it. So he then like tries to like take her out, if you know what I mean, by like holding her over the railing. And he's like he pretty much like is like, I can't have you, nobody can have you. That's not what he says. That's pretty much what he means. And he's like, I love you, Abby. And remember, there's three word phrases that can shut him off. And she says, I love you, Tim. And he shuts off. And they both fall over the railing, but she somehow climbs back up. And I'm not sure how. They don't show us over the railing. They don't show us how she's safe and how she's not dead right now. But she's alive somehow. And then we find out that she's pregnant. Yay! And her husband is dead, partially because of her fault and not believing him. But you know what? That's how the movie ends. And then we see like the lights flickering, kind of maybe insinuating that Tim is still around. And yeah, that's how the movie ends. So, as far as this movie goes, I know it sounds a little silly, and I did criticize it a bit, but I did enjoy this movie. I did actually enjoy this movie. It's not a perfect movie by any means. The point where Rose was trying to save her was a little funny and a little bit cringe, but that's okay because I was laughing, so that means it was good cringe at least. I mean, probably bad, but also good in the sense that it made me laugh. And I just feel like there was a little bit of things that were not really explained all the way through, but I do feel like maybe this was a bit of like a low budget movie, so maybe that's why, that could be why. Overall, I really do think that the acting was actually pretty good. I don't really have a problem with the acting at all. I think that the actress is a good actress. I've seen her in other things, and I really do think that she's done pretty well. I just think that the script could have been a tad bit better. I feel like maybe a little bit, there's some things that maybe could have been more explored. And I felt like they maybe, sometimes they just said stuff, but like they just said it to say it. And there was really no more depth to it. Like the, oh, we need diversity comment. It was like, okay. But like, there was really no other inkling of racism or sexism throughout the movie at all. I don't know. Maybe I missed it, but I really don't think I did. But yeah, overall, this movie is, for me, I'm gonna say it's a 6.5, a six. I'll say it's a 6 out of 10. It was enjoyable. I do feel like it was above average in terms of me liking the movie. I mean, I enjoyed it, so I'm not gonna complain about it like at all, even though there are criticisms. But I enjoyed it, so I cannot put it like at average or below if I enjoyed it. But yeah, I think it was like a 6 out of 10. What do you guys think about this movie if you've seen it? And I want y'all to go watch this movie. It's Tim on Hulu, and let me know what you think of it. This movie has been on my watch list for a while, and then I finally watched it, and I'm happy I did because I wasn't disappointed. So yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure that you like this video, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel to support me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.